You're watching Every Day's a Saturday, USCC veteran. Let's go, baby. And here's your host, Brian. And what's going on, friends and family? Thank you guys so much for joining me on another great day, another great interview. And I hope you guys are having an amazing 2025 out there. And remember, if you're out there struggling, you need someone to talk to, and you don't want to reach out and talk to someone you know, there's always the Crisis Lifeline. You can call that number, 988 Veterans, press 1. Hopefully it'll put you in touch with someone that can get you in the right direction and help you, and if you don't feel like reaching out to them, email me as well. Every day is a Saturday, 365 at yahoo.com. I'm always all ears, man. If you guys need someone to listen to, I am always here. No problem. I'm super excited for our next guest. It's kind of a little bit of a change in the normal show that we kind of been doing. But that's what this show, Every Day is a Saturday, is all about. Is we bring all the stories here, the good, the bad, the ugly. And sometimes there's things out there that we don't hear about often, right? They kind of keep it hush hush because for one reason or the other, it may be political, it may be a bad look on something. There's a lot of reasons why certain information gets suppressed. And, there's people out there that are scared to speak up, right? Because they don't want to be targeted. They don't want to be put aside. But there's people out there that are actually out there willing to put up the fight, willing to put their face out there, willing to fight for what is right. And we have two people here today to talk about some amazing stories. We have a mother of an Army who is spending 30 freaking years in Leavenworth. Good Lord. And all we've ever heard about Leavenworth when I was in is it's a place where you break little rocks into smaller rocks. I'm sure that's an exaggeration, but never talked good about Leavenworth. So I couldn't imagine having to do 30 years there, especially being wrongfully accused. We also have a Navy officer who was wrongly accused as well. And they are both here to talk all about what they are doing to put awareness on this and bring it to a forefront. So that way other men and women that are currently either serving time right now wrongfully, or people that may, experience it at some point in time, they want to try to prevent that kind of stuff and help the ones that are now serving wrongfully. And here to talk about their stories is Arvis and Holly. What's going on? Welcome to the show. I am absolutely eager to hear about this part, right? Like I was talking about to the audience, is this is the general topic that a lot of people don't really talk about and don't usually want to talk about. It's sometimes hard, right? And that's why I'm excited that you guys are here to bring awareness to this situation and be the face for it. Because I mean, honestly, we don't see a lot of this. A lot of people out there fighting for people that have been wrongfully accused. Because fighting, is a lot. It's a lot of work and a lot of calories, right? And you guys are willing to do that, especially you, Holly. You got your son, who is he's done 12 years, correct?
Yeah,
so far.
His 12th year.
Wow. So yeah, 12 years. And Arvis, how long ago were you wrongfully accused, and how long have you been out since?
So I was wrongfully accused in 2012, went to court-martial in 2013, and just want to say hey to your audience. The same panel, we call it a panel, not a jury in the military, who said guilty came back during sentencing and said, we made a mistake. This guy's not guilty. And the judge still did not care.
Wow. So, all right, Holly, we'll go kind of ahead and we'll start off with you, Holly, and we'll let you kind of tell your story and talk about your son and how he, let's talk about his story and how you're fighting for him to, seek
Okay.
justice.
My son's name is Robert Condon. Our family calls him Andy. Uh, his name is Robert Andrew Condon. So if I go to say Andy, that's who I'm talking about, Robert Condon. He was tech sergeant in the Air Force. He had served honorably for 10 years. He had deployed 6 times. He's a decorated veteran. The Army decorated him in Iraq, and the Air Force for his counterintelligence work in Afghanistan. He has many other awards. He had no trouble in his career. He was always among the best, according to his evaluations, promote above peers. And in 2013, a young woman made a false allegation against him. And she had come into the military 6 months previous. She was hiding a felony conviction from the Air Force, which made her enlistment fraudulent. And it was probably going to be um, discovered soon because she was just finishing her training. What you need to know at that time in the military, if a female was in trouble in any way that was in the military, if she was a sexual assault survivor, her wrongdoing of any kind would be forgiven. And as long as there was some man that she was accusing of sexual assault because she was a sexual assault survivor. We originally thought she was just jealous, but in the end, she did have that felony conviction. The military, she claimed an extremely violent attack, but the same nurse who did the um, exam 2 hours later couldn't find anything. She stated she had bruises. The same nurse couldn't find them. She asked the original investigating OSI agent to come in and look also because she wanted to be sure. She also could not find any. They did a comprehensive search of her whole body with the ultraviolet light. Couldn't find any injuries at all. And again, this is an extremely violent attack. The OSI agents from Quantico actually ordered a subdermal camera to look beneath the layers of her skin because she stated he bit her on her shoulder. And they couldn't find any trauma, and they knew that the camera was working because they could see the layers of her tattoo. I think that the OSI agents at that point knew that they had a liar, but they didn't just dismiss the case. They were under so much pressure from Congress to get convictions that they basically started recruiting women that my son had had previous relationships with, consensual relationships, and turning those consensual relationships into crimes. And two in particular, the first one was his OSI partner. He was an OSI himself. His partner, who stated she was not a victim, she stated that she felt um, bullied and manipulated, um, and they held her own misconduct over her head, offering immunity for her cooperation. She stated on the stand she was ordered to be here and she did not want to be here. She wrote a 3-page letter to the convening authority stating she wanted no part of the case at all, that they had taken her phone with an illegal search warrant, all the other things that she named that she repeatedly stated she wasn't a victim. Yet he was found guilty of a sexual assault against her, both of them saying it never happened. Then they brought in a third woman, which is the one they used to put him in pretrial confinement for over a year. She stated to the investigator she was 100% willing every time, but somehow he convinced her she was a victim and she made a statement. And when he read her typewritten statement, he told her that that didn't constitute a crime, what she put down there. And so she crossed out her typewritten statement and wrote in what he told her to make it a crime. And that's just the beginning of what they did. There was 55 days of communication between him and the original girl. She started She answered an ad that he had in Craigslist about couples meeting each other. She communicated with him for about 53 days by his BlackBerry phone. He was deployed to Africa at the time. When when they looked at those communications and saw the sexual nature of it, her willingness and what she was interested in, suddenly that phone was destroyed, and it was destroyed while it was in the hands of the prosecution. So all this great evidence for my son just goes away. They said it was
Wow.
lost. Yes. And there's many more things that they did, to get a conviction against a guy who, when he was being evaluated to become an OSI agent, had to be vetted, seriously vetted. And they went to all these people to make sure that he would qualify. They went to his ex-wife. She signed an affidavit that there was never any sexual assault or domestic violence between the two of them. Yet they brought her in as a propensity witness and made her change her statement. Which one was she telling the truth? The first one or this one where she cried on the stand the entire time because she didn't even want to be there? She'd already signed an affidavit that this never happened. And they just continued with that kind of behavior. The things they do, it's unbelievable. It would never, ever stand up in a civilian court of law. And all these cases that I'm hearing about, I know my detectives at the Toledo Police Department would tell these girls, no way. And some of our guys, and Arvis will be able to tell you, some of our guys actually had the woman go to a civilian agency first, and they would throw them out. And they had this woman taped saying, I lied. And she then went to the military, and the military wouldn't allow that detective to testify on his behalf. This is the kind of thing that they do under the UCMJ that is just horrible. These guys that will fight for our rights, would die for our country, are getting less rights than the worst criminals on the streets. It's not right.
Yeah. So, talk about how old was your son when he joined? What year was this when he joined and all that too?
He joined in 2003. He was 19.
19. Okay. And then when did this all occur?
He was 29 years old. It was 10/10 of 13 when they arrested him and put him in pretrial confinement.
So was he going to make a career? He was in the Air Force, correct? I think I said Army, but he's in the Air Force, correct? Was he planning to go 20 years?
I think so. He was already over 10. Yeah, he would, and like I said, he had an excellent career. He was doing great things. He was getting awards all the time. And this one girl makes this allegation, and with no evidence. No evidence. And I have 30 pages of the same nurse's report. No bruises, no cuts, no blood, no choke marks, no bite marks, no sign of sexual assault, any sex at all occurring on this night. And it didn't matter. The truth doesn't matter under the UCMJ.
And that's wild. And, you hear all these other stories, out in the of people getting away with certain things, and with way more evidence, and so that really, I didn't realize this show might frustrate me a little bit, but that is frustrating to hear some of the, some of these stories, and 30 years, I mean,
and just that. Okay, and so these women who make these false allegations, they end up getting paid by the government. So this particular first accused, she was going to probably be thrown out of the military when they found her felony conviction. She did not stay in the military. They did put her out, but they pay her as a sexual assault survivor. I'm not sure how much money. We haven't ever been able to find exactly how much money it is, but for years they pay.
Oh, they pay someone if you were sexually assaulted?
How many people in this country might lie for money? That's what these girls are getting. If you,
I never knew that victims get paid.
They don't in the civilian world. In the civilian world,
right,
we have a program where we'll help them with medical costs or something, that kind of thing, but nothing where they get a check every month for a long time. Arvis, you want to pipe in here and say?
Sure. So again, I just want to reiterate a little bit for your audience about Andy. So she claimed he raped her, he beat her, he bit her, he choked her, and there were bruises. And the sane nurse found no bruising, no choking, no bite marks, and that she had no sexual intercourse, much less being raped. And then she brought someone else in to check again. because she thought she made a mistake. And they said, no, you didn't. There's nothing. So I just want to reiterate that. But about the payment, they pay them for about 3 years in most cases. I think it's about $3,000. They give them health insurance. They will help with jobs. They get anywhere from 50 to 100% VA disability for MST, military sexual trauma. And they get the VA without any evidence. So you can file what's called a restricted or an unrestricted report. So an unrestricted report means they'll investigate and carry out something. But someone could say, you know what? When Brian was in, he touched me. And I want to make a restricted report, which means you never get notified. You never get investigated. They can take that claim that was never investigated with no evidence and bring it to the VA and get 50 to 100% disability.
Oh, that's kind of scary.
It is very scary.
That's a little concerning, right? Because people are willing to do crazy things for money, at the cost of someone else's life. I don't know. Gosh, damn,
Brian,
that's
Brian, let me mention some other things they get that Holly alluded to. Is if they want to transfer to another base, they get that, or from a unit. So you were in the Marine Corps. Let's say someone's attached to a ship and they want to go to a shore assignment. They become a victim. They can transfer where they want to go.
Which I get the flip side of it, right? But then you still you're still treading on scary waters there, right? Because you obviously a victim that genuinely got attacked or has a sexual assaulter, and they're going to still be on the ship, or they're still going to be in that area and they didn't get in trouble or whatever, or they're just, and maybe, or even just around the same peers, and sometimes in some cases, I can see why you'd want to get removed, but I could see how that could be dangerous.
Right. Brian, let me give you a specific example of the ship. We have a young lady who came to us. She was a paralegal at one command out in San Diego. She saw 500 cases of false allegations in the San Diego area in 1 year. So that's one service, one area, 1 year.
Good Lord.
She brought it to the attention of the supervisors.
That's an epidemic.
And they fired her. And she was the number one E6, right? So the same young lady was on a ship. She heard 3 women conspiring to falsely accuse a man that they had all had relations with so they could transfer off the ship.
Do you think they're all, I mean, some of these, people that are accusers or whatever, falsely accusing people, you think they're all talking, or, they get wind of like, hey, did you know if you do X, Y, and Z, A, B, and C can happen?
Yes, Brian. Is with all of the training that the military did, that they 100% are aware of all of the benefits they get. And I will tell you, it's risen to the point where the only service so far that has put any small step is the Army. There's a task and purpose article. I'll share it with you after the show, where the Army has said now they're going to go after false accusers. Right now they will. But think about all those years. I tell people, where's the Air Force, Marines, Navy, and Coast Guard? Because they all had many of these cases because of the pressure from Senator Gillibrand and others to get convictions regardless of what the evidence showed. We've got cases, Brian, where there was DNA proof, still convicted. Holly alluded to video evidence of a confession by the accuser that it was consensual, still convicted. Evidence that was thrown out, evidence that was destroyed. And so we want your audience to understand that we support true victims, is that we believe in, and you can support true victims and you can support the victims of false allegations. In fact, true victims should not want false accusers supported because it waters down and hurts their stories. But there was so much pressure, Brian, that everybody got lumped together and they made the system look for and prosecute regardless. Commanders got promoted based on their conviction rate. The Senate Armed Services Committee would look at their conviction rate for sex assaults only. And as many people may know or may not, a senator can pull you from the promotion list. And if you fail to send a allegation of sex assault or DV, they also did this with domestic violence, to court martial, it got reviewed by your boss. and then your boss's boss, and then the head of the JAG Corps of that service. So what kind of pressure are these commanders under? And I'm talking to the parents now of people potentially wanting to go in the military. It's, you think that the generals and the admirals will protect you, or protect your son, I should say. But when they're pressured to get convictions, they may not.
So, as of current, do you guys know of any cases where a false accuser has been punished, or do they ever go after false accusers?
No.
I've
Do they
heard a
spend any
rumor.
resources towards it?
I've heard a rumor about two.
Okay,
I heard a rumor.
just
No
rumor,
proof.
yeah, right.
No
Right,
proof.
right.
But I heard a rumor about two they went after.
Interesting.
So in fact, like I said, I got cases that I can quickly say.
So
Army,
there's
Navy, Air Force,
so there's definitely nothing there that would caution you, like, oh well, if you're lying, there's a consequence for you, you know, because I mean, obviously, if someone knew that you can get in trouble for lying, that would maybe caution some of these false accusers, right? Like,
I agree. I
if
agree.
you were to go after someone who is falsely accusing and they were able to show that, then now that person's doing some break time, you know. And I'll be honest with you, whatever that accused person was gonna get in terms of a sentence, the false accuser should carry that sentence on, because they were about to literally let someone go down for that term of time. I know that the rule would probably never get to my weird way of thinking of life, but you know, I feel like the burden should be taken on the person who's putting it on the other person, because not only are you just messing up with that kind of stuff, but even after, say, you were found not guilty at the end of the day, exonerated from what you did, there still carries on the whole baggage from it all, right? And
Ryan,
the
that's
dust that
true.
comes from it.
That's
right?
true. I want to put this in perspective for your listeners. I want them to imagine that someone they love is falsely accused. Is that the military in their training was saying, if you're the penetrated person, right, the accuser, if you had one alcoholic beverage, you couldn't consent. So think about that for a second. You can drive legally in every state in the United States after one drink. You go out on an anniversary, a birthday, you have one glass of champagne. And now the person who you had relations with is a predator. They took away the good soldier, good sailor defense, where you can't have someone speak good things about you until and unless you're convicted. But on the accuser's side, they can say anything they want. They created a law that you can go to prison for 2 years for sexual harassment and get a dishonorable discharge. And some people believe if you look at someone for too long, that's harassment. If you use foul language, that's harassment. There's no unanimous juries. Up until very recently, the commander who brought the charges got to pick who sat on your jury. Oh, and we've got cases where they didn't like the judge because the first judge recommended it be dismissed, so they replaced the judge. I'll tell a case about Eric Burris, who was an Army prosecutor in the 82nd Airborne, Fort Bragg. He was one of the supervisors of the other prosecutors. His ex-wife claimed that he sexually assaulted their daughter by tickling her in the presence of a social worker, female. Even though the female social worker testified that, hey, that's not true, it wasn't sexual, it was just a playful tickling by a father to a daughter, he got 20 years in prison. And so
my Lord,
that's a story. We got a story where the young lady, she's married with 4 children. She goes out and tells her husband she's going to go get a candy bar. And so instead she goes to a bar. She does shots. She dirty dances with a soldier and tells him in front of his friends and witnesses, can we go back to your barracks room and have some fun? He says yes. They're hooping and hollering and doing certain things that you might have heard. She takes him by the hand, leads him out of the bar, drives him to his barracks room. They have sex not once but twice. He tries to get her phone number. He doesn't even have her phone number at this point. He's like, hey, can I get your number? She's like, oh, no, I'm married and I got 4 kids. Like, this is what it is. He had unprotected sex with her. She goes home. She calls the police and says, can I get a plan B? She doesn't say I was raped. She says, can I get a plan B? Because remember, she was going to get a candy bar. So they go, were you raped? They have to ask her many times, and she finally says, okay. They take her to the hospital. She doesn't want to do a rape exam. She just wants that plan B. If you were raped, do you want them to find who it was? So they use her phone data. They find the person. She claims she's distraught. 2 weeks later, she's at the same bar dancing with 2 guys that aren't her husband. And then she leaves her husband and goes to another state. Okay, so that's Army. Let me tell you Navy, because we've heard Air Force. We have a Navy SEAL. He's falsely accused by a young lady. He goes to prison, and the 2-star admiral, Admiral Lorge, we have a copy of the affidavit. It's on that page we shared with you, where the admiral comes back after he's retired and says, I'm sorry that I felt pressure from President Obama and Senator Gillibrand, and I knew, and he'd been told by the head JAG in the Navy and her deputy who replaced her as head JAG not to upset the findings, even though he knew the guy was innocent. So he writes an affidavit. We have a copy. People can read it. They give it, they overturn his case, and but none of the other cases oversawn by the head 2 JAGs in the Navy were ever investigated, except that one. Okay, that's Navy. How about Marines? You're a devil dog. I got a Marine who had DNA proof it wasn't him, and they had it, they suppressed it. 5 years. They sent him to prison. And then they go, oops, hey, we had this DNA proof and we suppressed it, but we're going to release you now. And we're going to dock your pay, and we're going to do all this other stuff. And we don't want you coming in the base. He was out in California. That's Marines. I'll tell you, Coast Guard. We have a Coast Guard veteran. His wife, when he asked for a divorce, she goes, you don't want to do that. She accuses him of sex assault during the marriage. Her own testimony, she goes, well, yeah, I had sex with him. He would think it was consensual, but in my mind, I was thinking no. And when asked, well, how would he know what's going in your mind if you were doing this stuff as part of being married? Well, he wouldn't have known. He gets convicted, sentenced to prison. He hasn't seen his children. Another Army case where the accuser admits on camera. Holly mentioned how she went to the civilian police at first. They interview, they investigate. The soldier doesn't even ask for a lawyer because he's like, I didn't do this. She admits on camera, hey, I was going to get kicked out for PT failure. That's why I did it. It was consensual. So the civilian police drop it. There's a CID agent in the room to hear the confession. 1 year later, the Army picks up the case. He gets found guilty, sentenced to 5 years in prison. So I want your listeners to understand that we support true victims. We believe they deserve justice. They deserve the investigations. We're talking about false accusations and military pressure to get convictions regardless of what the evidence shows. And these men's lives are damaged. The ones who are out of prison, and Holly's son is not, he's still in prison suffering. There's grandchildren she wants to have, she won't have right now. There's Christmas dinners she wants to hug him at. She doesn't get that. Every month in this country, a person on the sex offender registry is killed. Your neighbors treat you like trash if you can even find a job. Think about how hard it is to find a job right now and add a dishonorable discharge and a sex offense. And one of the last laws that was added was sexual harassment. Like we said before, it was 2 years in prison and a dishonorable discharge. And some people believe if you look at them too long, it's sexual harassment. If you use foul language, it's sexual harassment. How many people in the military use foul language?
Ooh,
so we ask,
not just foul language, but vulgar language.
Right. And so that's what I'm saying. So again, what if I told you your daughter would be believed, but your son would not? And I'll make this statement. If the military can't be honest and just with your son, then how can they keep you safe? 3 questions. First question is, are the best and brightest going to join if they know they won't be treated fairly? I say no. Second question. The people who are the best and brightest who already joined, are they going to stay in if they know they won't be treated fairly? I say no. And then third and final question. If the best and brightest don't join and the best and brightest won't stay, who is left to keep you safe? I want you to consider that.
Well, man, you gave us some really horrible stories. I mean, it's sad to hear these stories, honestly, and because I know it ruins lives, man. I mean, these are livelihoods, and it ruins you completely. And I know, and a lot of us already experience mental health issues and stuff from being in the military. Add on some false allegations and all the things that come with that as well. I couldn't imagine, how that is for your mental health. Now we haven't got a chance to hear your story yet, so let's take a quick break, real quick, and then when we come back, Arvis, we'll hear your situation, your story, and you are out here to talk about it, right? And the outcome and the outfall and all that stuff. So when we come back, we'll hear your story. So we'll take a quick break.
American made, better known, we are Doc Goodbeard. It's more than just looking good. When it comes to your beard, we believe you can have it all. Thoughtfully designed, unique fragrances, and affordable prices. We strive to provide a line of uniquely scented balms and oils that you won't find in other products. Come on, rock with Doc, and remember, it's all about the beard, man. So what do you say? Let's take that average beard and make it badass. Go to docbeard.com.
Welcome to Sick Call with Doc, a podcast dedicated to eradicating veteran suicide. With 22 veterans lost every day, we believe that's 22 too many. Join us as we bring you inspiring stories, heartfelt conversations, and a community that cares. Because no matter what, you are not alone. We were there for you then, and we're here for you now. Follow, like, and share our mission. Together we can make a difference. Inspiring hope, saving lives.
All right, and we're back. All right, Arvis, we'll go ahead and you've gave us a lot of different stories from every single branch. Now we're going to talk about your story,
Okay.
and get your background.
So Arvis Owens, originally from Beaumont, Texas, United States Naval Academy graduate, 1995. It was 2012 when I had a relationship extramarily. I was wrong for that, with a coworker. And she came back and said that I sexually assaulted her. She said in her statement, as an example, I didn't raise her pencil skirt. She didn't raise it, that it raised automatically, causing her legs to open, causing her to straddle me and open mouth kiss me in a chair. But in her mind, she wasn't consenting. I went to court martial. I testified in my own defense. I was charged with 7 counts of sexual assault. I was found not guilty of 6 of them. The 7th one, the jury came back and asked to revote that guilty verdict because she lied again during sentencing. They don't allow you to say lie when you're in court. You have to say inconsistent statement. So the jury, we know because they said it. And the judge basically said, hey, she's been saying inconsistent statements the entire time. But it was finally the straw that broke the camel's back. They didn't declare a mistrial. They didn't ask for a new trial or anything like that. They said guilty. So some of the jury or panel members wrote letters, professing my innocence to go to the convening authority. Before they could do that, the judge issued an illegal order telling them not to do it. And when we objected, she asked the prosecutor, she had another hearing to ask the prosecutor to ask her to tell the jury not to do it because she had already done it to remedy her error. It goes through the convening authority. The admiral in charge says he never got those letters. So it goes to the appellate court. And then magically they go, well, they were misplaced. They were lost. And so they give me a new convening authority's action. That's where the leader can look and throw the case out, give me a new trial. And even though enough members of that panel came forward and said, this guy's not guilty, they go, guilty. We want it to go through. So then it goes forward and the Navy writes a letter to the appellate court saying, we don't want you to give this guy an appellate review. Even though he warrants one, we don't want you to give it to him. Wink, wink. So they gave me one, but there was no relief. Actually, I adjust that. They took away one charge because they found me guilty of violating an order that they never received a copy of, and that both myself and my false accuser admitted that I didn't do. And the judge during the trial said, hey, we have a problem. There's no evidence he did that. But it still, like I said, went forward. And so I reached out to organizations and newspapers for help. and I couldn't find anybody. And so I decided to become the advocate that I could not find for myself and others, because people started coming to me saying, "Hey, will you help my son? Will you help me? This happened to me. Like, what can we do?" We got them together and we reached out to various podcasters and radio shows. And thankfully, we've been able to put out the stories and get attention to say, this could happen to your son too. I hope it doesn't, but this is the way the system is geared. And like I said, you thought the admirals and the generals would protect your son, but when there's pressure there, you want someone to protect them. And that's how that's going. I want to thank Brian for having us on this show, because most military podcasters are afraid to touch this topic. They'll tell you about all the fun stuff in the military, all the happy stuff, all the cool adventure stuff, but they don't want to tell you this side. Is we know Tim Kennedy, Green Beret, right now is being investigated because they say he implied that he got a Bronze Star in combat. So they'll talk about that, but they won't talk about men who've been committing suicide because they've been falsely accused. They can't find jobs. They're living in their parents' basements. They can't find wives or girlfriends anymore because, you know, they're registered. In 2021, started a petition with one of the guy's moms. I wrote it out for her, used her as the face of it. Within 2 weeks, the state of Virginia removed me from the sex offender registry. They contacted the military, and when they looked at my case, I'd been saying it all along, they go, wait a minute. Your lawyer asked, did he use any force, any threats? She goes, no force, no threats, no coercion, no incentives. And they were like, well, there's no element of force. So if your own accuser is saying you didn't force her in any way, there can be no sex assault. So I was on the offender registry from 2014 till 2021 when they took me off 2 weeks after we had a change.org petition, which is www.change.org/unjust UCMJ. Please sign it. Please share it. Please share this video to help us get the information out so we can educate those young men going into the military about what can happen. And we can hopefully get the politicians in the military to fix this wrong.
Yeah, definitely, guys, go check out this www.change.org/unjust UCMJ and sign this petition. You know, any help will help. They got 2,587 verified signatures.
Right. Oh, we also found out, Brian, that someone is suppressing the petition. We had an IT expert, one of the brothers of one of the guys. He said someone's spending about $1 million a year to suppress that petition. He says, but if you give me 600,000, I could stop it. And so I told the young man, I said, $1 million is a drop in the bucket for DOD. Let's pretend it's them, right? I can't prove it's them, but let's pretend it's them. All they'll do is spend $2 million, right? The other thing I'd like to add is, I don't know if you've been keeping track of the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively situation.
Little bit.
So
little familiar.
To make a parallel to what's happening to us is you have an actress who claimed he sexually harassed her, that he went into her trailer when she was breastfeeding, or I'm sorry, pumping breast milk. He produces the text messages to show she invited him in and says, hey, I'm only pumping. He knocks on the trailer, brings a witness and says, hey, is it okay if I come in? She says yes, and he comes in. But now she's saying that was harassment. She's saying another guy showed her porn on his phone. Well, when they investigate, he was showing the birth of his child at home, and all the private parts were covered. She claimed that during the scenes that he was doing and saying inappropriate things, he released all of the footage, and yet 19 victims' rights group wrote what's called an amicus brief, a brief of support for the accuser, and not one wrote it for Justin Baldoni. And so that's in the newspaper. They may have heard of Johnny Depp. So these are celebrities. So the average American will see these celebrities that it happened to them. But in the military, there's a separate court system and there's an administrative process. And they have no idea.
That's wild. Now, Arvis, to kind of put a little bit of some timeline on it, how long, were you in before you were accused? And were you planning on making the career out of it?
Of course, I was going to make a career. I was at year 17 when,
Oh my
and with
God.
the appellate leave, it took me to 21. So you're on appellate leave, which counts. So they didn't discharge me till 2016. I had 21 years in at that point. And so that's what I share with people is that it didn't matter what rank you were or what gender, I mean, like what service you were, is if someone made an allegation, that was enough for them to go forward. And I do believe in Holly's son's case that they wanted to make an example out of him because he was an OSI agent. What Holly didn't mention is in the average case, they got about 3 years and her son got 30.
Mm.
And they keep denying him for parole. And they want you to sign a confession in prison, Brian. Even you're arguing your innocence. They don't do that anywhere else. They want you to sign a conviction, or I'm sorry, a confession. And then they require you to sign one for you to get the training to qualify for parole. Even though Holly paid for it herself out of her own pocket, they don't tell you that part. But when you do, they go, well, we don't want to count it. And they keep making excuses and trying to get these guys in trouble when their families want them home. They want them whole. Holly has, I think, 5 employers willing to hire her son today. She keeps submitting packets. I can't tell you how broken these families are mentally, spiritually, financially, and their trust is shattered. Her own father's 92 years old, and he says every day he wants to see his grandson before he dies. He's a veteran of the Korean War. And he's even done some videos where he's implored people to help, but the politicians won't meet with people. They won't meet with people. And what I also want to do is I want to call out 2 politicians by name on your show. And I know it's controversial. One is Kathleen Hicks. She was the Deputy Secretary of Defense, number 2. She contacted Mr. James Thomas, who he's a retired Marine as well. Tell it like it is. He has his own talk show. And she was going to investigate and put out a report. And then she's silenced, right? And then you had Carolyn Crass, who was the DOD General Counsel under President Biden, also came to him as well. So here's what I'm going to paint the picture for your audience. So you had the number 2 in the Secretary of Defense. Did she tell her boss the number 1? She should have. And if she told her boss the number 1, then he should have sold President Biden. So we can show how the Biden administration, at the very least, they were aware of the information and they did nothing. And so that it hurts your heart in ways that I can't even fathom. So like I said, we always ask, hey, if you have someone you know going in the military, hey, let us speak to them. Holly reached out to schools, high schools. She's our background in police. She just wanted to educate, and not one high school principal wanted their students to hear it. So are they really protecting your son if they don't want you to hear the other side? I would say no.
Yeah,
and my last statement with this, again, we have a podcaster who has over 1 million followers, who is in the military. He himself was falsely accused, one of their golden boys. Now, we fortunately got that dropped. But guess what? If this guy can get falsely accused, then anybody can. And most people wait until it's too late. They don't care until it's after the fact and it's happened. And that's when things go awry.
Can you imagine,
That's
Brian?
bad.
Can you imagine, Brian? You know that you didn't do it. You know that you didn't do it.
Right.
You go in there thinking, no way, I didn't do it. And they do everything they can to make sure that you're guilty. And in my son's case, they sent his appellate attorney a record of trial that they renumbered, took 66 pages out of, and renumbered so that attorney thought he had the whole record of trial. And so my son didn't even get a fair appellate review because his attorney is working off a completely different record. So every time my son told him this thing is on this page, the attorney couldn't find it. And so he made all kinds of citations that the court couldn't find.
I couldn't even think about it, right? Because here you go making a commitment and a selfless commitment to your country, and you want to serve, and next thing you know, you're getting taken down by the same people you were willing to go die for. I mean, that has got to be just disheartening. And talk about your husband. I mean, your husband, your son a little bit now. Do you guys get a chance to communicate with each other?
He
If you do, how's his morale? And do you get to? How is his day to day? I mean, does he stay in his cell all the time? I mean, what's his life like? Do you
they
have
all
any inclination?
at the USDB, they call it the United States Disciplinary Barracks. That's the big prison on the base at Fort Leavenworth. The guys that go there have to have at least 10 years. My son's in minimum custody at this point. He's mostly stays in this room. That he was OSI has gotten him beaten up at one point, attacked and knocked out.
Oh, shit.
Because he was previously OSI. No one trusts him because he was previously OSI. He is trying to write some books. He did write a book called The Invisible Casualty by Robert Condon. I was going to bring up a copy to show you. I didn't. That just explains his case and all the things they did to make him guilty from an OSI investigator's point of view. He has, it's The Invisible Casualty. He named because the Invisible War documentary kind of started a lot of this. We do get to talk. He's in Kansas. We're in Ohio. It's a 12-hour drive. Before COVID, we could fly in 2 hours from Detroit there, but now everything's changed and you have to sit in Chicago for 6 hours. So we see him every 4 or 5 months. He calls. He has a tablet now, so I can text him. He can text me back. You have to, of course, watch what you're saying there, but I just feel his sister's gotten married since he's been there. He hasn't met his brother-in-law. He hasn't met his new baby niece. My daughter's expecting her second child. My father, and again, is 92 years old. My son's father died 2 years ago. He was a Green Beret during the Vietnam conflict. And he died thinking his son was a liar because his friend reviewed the record of trial and it didn't match what my son was saying because it was the wrong record of trial. So that's a horrible thing,
Let me add to what Holly is saying. She reached out to her congresswoman, Marcy Kaptur of Ohio, Toledo, and she was supposed to meet with her. And so far, the chief of staff has pulled every trick, not to meet with her, to try and at least ask the questions like, when are you going to let my son come home? When are you going to do something? Marcy, and this is my understanding, she's the longest serving female congresswoman in history. She extremely powerful, and they don't even want to hear it, Brian. That's how crazy this is. And mainstream media, again, I want to thank you for having the courage to have us on, because most of your peers, the military podcasters, we just were on one recently. Teresa Carpenter has a great podcast. Military. We've got Terrence, former Green Beret, Redonkulous. We have a few out there with the bravery to tackle this issue, but most of them, they want clicks and the cash. And so they'll tell you the fun stuff, but if they're not telling you this side, you know what? What are you getting your loved one into? Because they're not being forthright with this information. They won't talk to us. They won't have us on their show, right? So thank you again for having the bravery and the courage to actually put your podcast where your mouth is.
Absolutely. And you got to be able to be transparent, and that's what I speak all the time is transparency, and that goes with the good, the bad, and the ugly. And no matter what, we got to and some of these things deserve attention, though, because it's a shame for us to just forget about someone who got put away for 20, 30 years and they're in there for the wrong reason, or they're not even in there for the right reason, or they're wrongfully in there. In general, and everybody's okay because they're on with their life and they're doing their thing and it's okay. But there's a person that's like, I mean, I can't imagine how his mental health is, right? I mean,
right.
he sees the same thing every single day, and it's not, it's not going to change for a
And
while.
Brian, let me scare you and all the other veterans out there. We have a case where a young man, I think it was 18 years before, had been accused by a young lady. It went to civilian court. He was out of the military, and they brought him back on active duty to try him, convict him, and send him to prison. There was
Is there no statute of limitations? Yeah,
not in the military. So you veterans out there thinking, if somebody were to come out the woodworks and says, basically, in 1981, you touched my right foot and called me caramel chocolate, you coming back in and getting accused and convicted potentially.
Wow.
So it's, you think you're safe, but you're not.
That's wild. Yeah, and Arvis, I want you to speak a little bit. So you were registered for 7 years, right? I mean,
Almost 8. Yeah, almost 8 years.
Damn
7 years,
near.
10
It
months.
was so. Talk about the toll of that, man.
So-
I mean, yeah.
So here's what I'll tell you with that. Imagine you're applying for a job and you're a sex offender and you got a dishonorable discharge. I still don't have one, by the way, a job, because you're competing with people who are, let's say, equally qualified. And let me be fair to the businesses. They have liability insurance. And so I've had people say, Arv, look, if we hire you and our liability insurance finds out and somebody says you touched her in the copy room, even if it's not true, our liability insurance is going to cut a $7 million check. I couldn't have my family answer the door because a sex offender is killed every month in this country. And people don't want to hear the truth. I've had neighbors who rejected me. The military ones understood. I had a military veteran neighbor who 2 years after I was on the registry comes to my house and hugs me and starts crying. He says, I found out you were falsely convicted. They were under pressure. They had to do it. I'm so sorry. This is 2 years. I'm in there sweeping my driveway, and this guy comes and hugs on me. I've been spit on. You're a target. There's depression like you wouldn't read about. There's you can't take your kids to amusement parks. You can't go to their schools. You can't participate in Little League. You can't participate in Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, any of that. So if you do have children, you won't be able to participate in their lives. I just had a veteran call me upset because he couldn't take his daughter to Six Flags. Her school nominated him to be one of the parents to go, but he could not go because you can't go to those places.
Yeah.
And some states put something on your driver's license to say you're there. And Brian, you have that label regardless of if the military comes back and take it away. It's because you've lived with that brand. And so it's every day is a struggle, right? I mean, I've talked to veterans who can't get to certain facilities because you can't go on base anymore, right? You can't get your VA services on base. You have to go out of your way to another center. And I don't even get those VA services at all, right? You get no support, and you have a label that justifies not getting support. That Navy SEAL I told you about, when he was on the registry, he couldn't get a job at McDonald's or Uber. He was homeless. This guy, he's fought in wars for us, been the best of the best, and he was homeless.
Wow.
And nobody wanted to help except a few of his friends because you're on the registry. So that's what that's like. I would ask your audience, think about if you're on the registry, how do you think people would treat you? Do you think they'd ever let their kids go over to your house to play with your kids? Are you get invited to their parties? You're not. And there's so much crushing pain on you that some days you don't even know if you can get up. We had a military chaplain, Brian, come forward, and she gave an interview for us. I have a copy if you need it, where she connected the rise in suicide rates in all services to false allegations. She came out anonymous. She's active duty, and she's like, they keep saying more training, more training, more training. How do you train someone not to make a false allegation? I think to your point, if you start saying we're going to punish you if we find this out, then maybe. But you got to do it. You can't just say it.
Yeah, I know we kind of talked about that a little bit now. I don't know if we were recording at that point in time, but as far as you know, there's really no repercussion towards people that are the falsely accusers.
Well, the Army, like I said, there's an article on Task and Purpose. They've announced it. They're the only service so far have said, okay, now we're going to investigate false accusers. The Army's the only one who said it. It's in Task and Purpose. You can Google that one. But the Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard, quiet. Plus, hey, is that retroactive? Are you going to go back? Does that mean you're going to, if I tell that to Holly, she's like, Arvis, when's my son coming home? I got Tuesday dinner right here. I got some rhubarb pie with his name on it. She don't want to hear that. I'm going to get slapped virtually. When is my son coming home? And I'm joking a little bit, but when is my son coming home? I've got mothers and fathers crying, go, I trusted the military. I trusted them to keep my son safe. You can't tell me. And I'm like, look, and they call their congressman, their senator who know about it. They know about it. And then they play what I call the phone staffer shuffle, right? If you get a staffer on, good luck with them doing anything. Good luck with them calling you back, scheduling a meeting, or doing anything. They don't want to touch it because it's an embarrassment. The military thinks villains and heroes, where they are always the hero.
Right.
Well, how do you come up with a hero when you had President Obama, Senator Gillibrand, obviously other members of the Senate and Congress passing these laws? You had generals and admirals. Tell me who we picking for the hero and who we picking for the villain. And so that's the hard part, that it's they realize what they've done. But answer me this, Brian, and I want your audience to really think about what this means to them. Is if pretend everything I've told you, you know, with 100% certainty. I've shown you that whatever you need to believe, pretend you have that. Are you going to send your son or loved one to the military ever again? Are you ever going to endorse someone going? So that's what they're worried about losing if they were ever to acknowledge, hey, we did this, right? Hey, we did this. We have had former investigators from every service come forward to help us quietly. We've had judges. We've had some flag officers privately come to us. We've had judge advocates. I've had some who've done interviews with us to say, hey, look, we know it's happening. We want to do something, but kind of like you ever see those big lawsuits when they said, hey, this doesn't acknowledge wrongdoing on our part. That's what they want. They want something like that. How do I give back Andy Condon 12 years of his life? How do I give back Holly Pflager Yeager, the grandkids he would have produced, the Christmases, the Thanksgivings, the Easters? She's got family gatherings. They're very close, very tight family. I'm sure she has members of her family who are, well, I don't know. And she has to deal with that, the stress that's placed on her. I don't think we talk about the stress placed on families enough. And them not coming out of their rooms. I've had mothers, Brian, who can't come out of their rooms because they're crying. And their other children are like, they can't understand that they're only as happy as their worst child is. They love all their children. Right. And they can't move. They can't eat. They can't drink. They can't sleep because the military has done this and they know it. And like I said, Andy's been up for parole. We've had other guys who've been up for parole. Eric Burris was a former prosecutor, as I mentioned. He knows the secrets. They don't want him out. They don't want him out because he'll tell them. They don't want Andy Condon out. He'll tell them. And then once your audience knows it's true, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it?
Now, Holly, with Andy's situation, are you guys any closer to getting him out, or him, does it look like he's in for the long haul? I mean, or is there some hope?
Every year we make his parole packet up. He has 5 people have said that he can live with them here. He's had 5 job offers. Okay. We send this stuff in. The people there at Leavenworth say this is the best packet we've ever seen. He's got.
Is there a criteria that they want to kind of see in order to get him out? So kind of go through the criteria that they want to see.
They want him to do this treatment, but then they keep denying the treatment. So there's a federal prison. They have a package that you can buy the treatment package. So I bought them $55 a piece. We bought 4, sent them to him. He filled them out, sent them in. They sent him back a certificate of completion. Good enough for the federal prison system, not good enough for the military prison system. The following year, I had a psychologist talk to him. Cost me $2,000 to talk to him every week for 6 weeks. He diagnosed him with chronic PTSD, but said there's no sexual offender here, and they denied that. They wouldn't take that. He's supposed to take this treatment, and he was supposed to take it. He agreed in 2019. He was scheduled for it July of 22. In July of 22, they said, oh no, there's people that are going to get out before you. We're moving you back. Not just back a month, years. Now I have some documentation that shows they don't even have enough people to do the treatment. They're short staffed and they don't have enough people to even do the treatment. They're saying they won't let him out until he's had treatment. So I have, and then my son says there's guys there from the Air Force that have had their treatment that would qualify for parole, and they're not giving them. The Air Force last year gave one parole, one out of there. So
Wow.
we don't have a lot of hope. He certainly doesn't have a lot of hope that they're going to get him out. We're hoping that this kind of thing, bringing it to the public to know how wrong these guys have been done, how wrong they've been done.
Right. And Brian, I'll tell you another Air Force story to pick up back on that. We have a person, he finds out his wife's having an affair. He's an Air Force person. She's pregnant. It's a teacher, a fellow teacher. She's a teacher. He files for divorce. He gets custody of their daughter. I want your audience to think about how hard it is for a man to get custody of a child when there's a divorce and separation, and then of a daughter at that.
Right.
She goes to him and says she files sexual assault charges with the civilian police. They investigate and say there's nothing. She goes to a second police precinct. They go investigate. There's nothing. Then she goes to the military. The military starts the process, and then it gets back to him via his lawyers. Hey, if you drop custody of the daughter and give it to the ex-wife, she'll drop all charges. He says, no, I believe in my country. I believe in the Air Force. He takes it to court-martial. He gets found guilty, sentenced to prison. His mom, very savvy lady, we use her with the petition. She calls the man who had the affair with the ex-wife of her son on the phone, and he admits he took $10,000 and he lied in military court. So here's the news flash. If a civilian lies in military court, well, they don't have jurisdiction. Now, technically, they could turn it over to the Department of Justice, but do they? We haven't found cases where they have. So she submits it to the Air Force saying, hey, look, he said he lied and he got 10 grand. So the military orders a hearing. Brian, he admits it wasn't 10,000. That was one installment. It was $100,000 and he lied. He gets on the stand and admits he lied.
Wow.
The judge in the case said, hey, I'm not authorized to overturn the case. Brian, why have a hearing to hear evidence if you can't do nothing in the case? So this young man does go to his congresswoman, who is great. She goes after the Air Force, and then they change their story. They're like, well, the judge could have done it, but he used his discretion. And then we go after him again, and they go, well, he submitted it too late. Wait a minute. Why would you have a hearing if the evidence that was submitted was too late? And they keep changing their story. He's filed civil suits. He's not had success. An Army case where the young lady says she was drunk. You used that example earlier. But yet she told her best friend she had one drink. So which one is it? Her first statement where she said a bunch, or what she told her friend where she said she had one? So then when it turns out they look into it, well, yeah, it was one drink. Okay, well, I was drugged. So they do a toxicology report. There's no drugs in your system. She changes her story again. This is number 3. Well, maybe I took a Xanax. Wait a minute, but it didn't show up in the toxicology report. Hey, let's throw that aside. Guilty. We're going to send him to prison. That's the type of cases that you're just like, you got to be kidding me. You know, your viewers watch these cop shows, right? Holly was a cop herself, as she has mentioned. She's retired, where the evidence convicts or the evidence frees the person. And when we show where it was thrown out, it was destroyed, it was denied to be used by the accused, you're just like, wait a minute, that's in this country? That's with our U.S. service members. Wait a minute, 4th of July, I say thank you for your service, but I don't care that this type of stuff is happening to our servicemen.
So grossly unfair.
So
Grossly unfair.
And think about how hard it is, Brian, to get on CNN, the Fox, and look, I'm calling out Joe Rogan, Sean Ryan. We're trying to get on those big shows to say, look at what happened. Does someone care? Or do they talk about supporting the veterans? Do they mean it? Like I said, I gave you that compliment. You put your podcast where your mouth is. You backing up what you believe. Most of these clicks and money, right? Clicks and money is what they care about and not the truth. And what really shocked me was not one of the principals that Holly reached out to. Hey, look, let me just tell them the other side. Not one of them wanted that story told. So parents, think about your principal pushing your kid to the military and knowing this, but keeping quiet as kept. How do you feel about that? Do you want somebody fighting for your son? Because look, they come for us, right? Shouldn't these admirals and generals be doing it? What Holly and I are doing? They should be. But so far they haven't.
Yeah, and it's a shame. You know, a lot of it goes to the fact that there's too much pride in the military, right? And like you've said it earlier, you know, the military prides themselves in holding themselves to a different standard. And they don't want to talk about that little percent. Every community has it, no matter what, right? Every community has your good and you have your bad. That goes for military, police, everything. You have your good, you have your bad. The part about the military is they suppress a lot of this part. They just don't want to continue to talk about it. They want to keep suppressing it, push it down, minimize it, throw a whole bunch of stuff at it to convolute it, muddy the waters, make things unclear, you know, so that way there always is that shadow of doubt or you know, that you're left to think for your own thoughts. It's just a shame though, right? Because they're not doing themselves or the military any, you know, good service here by suppressing these stories. These stories need to be talked about, because when you start to hide things or you suppress it, it starts to have a bad look on you at the end of the day anyways. Like, wow, what are they hiding? Do I want my son or daughter going into an organization where they could possibly be on the other end of this and be sent away for 20, 30 years because someone decided they were ashamed of what they did?
That's it. Regret is not rape.
Right. And that's a thing. We live in a society of judgment where we're judged by our peers all the time. And then some of us really can't handle the judgment. We hate when others think a certain way about us. So sometimes when we do something that we're not exactly, you know, happy about or something, we're not going to go share that with the world.
Brian, I'm going to give you a specific example of that. So, like I said, Teresa Carpenter did an excellent interview, put some information out, put a page together for us with some of our data. So some JAG attorneys reached out because she's still active duty and says, how could you do this? This is wrong. So she sent them an article written by a former special victims prosecutor, one of their own. He only prosecuted sexual assault cases, right? And guess what? He's like, the system's unfair for accused. We had a law review write an article that says, we looked at the military system and it's grossly biased against the accused. So when she sent that to them, they shut the hell up. But they didn't know that to begin with. They had no idea that there was pressure. And so I don't know if they were trying to deceive or did they really not know? And so that's the thing that's so
it makes you wonder, do they not want to know too? You know, I mean, it's like the hey, kind of look that way, you know, and you know, if I don't see it, I don't hear it, it ain't going on.
And here's another fact with that.
No one wants to deal with stuff like that, right? Because that's a fight.
In 2004, there was an Innocence Protection Act. So that covers every American except people in the U.S. military. So there's an Innocence Protection Act where you've got innocence projects and you've got conviction integrity units that cover every citizen of the United States except the military. And I know some of your audience will say they hold us to a higher standards. Guess what? It's the same sex offender registry. It's the same. You can't get a job. It's the penal things that happen to you when you're on the when you have a dishonorable discharge. Is there's so many things that happen to you that we don't hold our congressmen to that standard, but yet you hold the people in the military to that standard and that level of punishment. Brian, we have men who they've had one speeding ticket and now they're on the sex offender registry. They don't have any parking tickets, no interaction with law enforcement that's negative, and this on their record. And they're living in their parents' basement, sleeping in a G.I. Joe mattress set from back when they were in school.
Well, the hard part about this is, right, what's the percentage of men and women that join the military? You know, and
it's a small percentage of the country at large.
Right.
That's true.
Right. So then you take that little slit, like, you know, maybe 2% of the population joins, let's say that. Right. And then you even get this little smaller portion of the people, the accused, the wrongly accused, and then people don't want to pay attention to that, right?
Let me tell you why your audience should care, Brian. You ready? Because guess what's going to happen? So people are not going to join when they find this out and they understand it's real. So the military needs people to join. So if the people don't join voluntarily because they know this is happening, well, then they got to do something called drafting, right? So people don't like to say the D word, draft. Is you've got selective service. Right now, men 18 to 25, like it's automatic. You have to register for selective service. So are you going to wait till the point where they're drafting your son to come in and then you're going to care? So if you don't fix it now, when that draft comes and now your son has to go, your neighbor has to go, your nephew, your cousin, your uncle, they have to go. Will you care then when it's too late? So do something now, right?
And so
put out the fire before it burns down the forest.
Every parent whose child joins the military knows that they could be killed or maimed. They never expect that they're going to be falsely accused and wrongfully convicted by the branch of service that they swore an oath to. They never suspect that that can happen. No one suspects that that can happen, and they need to know. They can be killed, they can be maimed, and they can be falsely accused.
Yeah, I got to imagine, Holly, when you found that out, you had to be
every one of
bewildered.
those devastating.
Yeah. I imagine that kind of news has to be very unsettling. Now, the military, you know, when I was in, one thing they do focus on is doing sexual harassment classes and things like that. Something they don't talk about is wrongfully accusing someone or things like that. They should start educating on those kind of stories as well, right? Because
Brian, what they were doing before is they were using what's called the 2% rule. They were claiming that only 2% of sexual assault allegations are false. I always ask, where did you get it and how did they determine it? And I haven't found a good answer since. Again, an independent body, separate from the military, did 2 snapshots. And in one snapshot, it was 40% and the other was 35%. So 40 and 35 is not the majority, but that's a far cry from 2%. So when you train people that only 2% are false, what do you train to the potential jury members? Hey, if I say guilty 98% of the time, I'm right, regardless of the evidence. That's what you're doing. So they did do training. They were pushing that 2% narrative. And then I noticed they went from 2% to 2 to 5. And then they said 2 to 10. And then now you just don't hear it at all. So they did do training, but the wrong training. Like part of their training was that one drink and they can't consent, right? One drink and they can't consent.
It's crazy, right? Like how, like, so for you, Arvis, everything that happened to you has been reversed since, right?
No, not everything.
No? Okay, so you still have some things that are hanging over you.
Of
But there
course.
are
Look,
things that have been reversed off of,
is the conviction wasn't reversed. They didn't get to
right.
reverse it. They
Okay.
took me off the registry. That was it. So I do a background check. It still pops.
Gosh, damn, okay.
I still
Yeah.
have the conviction. I'm still titled. People see that. They still see the dishonorable. Everything is there. I'm just not in prison and I'm not on the registry. But here's the kicker that I tell veterans. If I move to another state, that other state gets to decide if I go back on the registry. If I go work in a state,
Oh shit.
that state gets to decide if I go back on the registry. Now I have some protection because, like I said, Virginia took me off because they were worried based on the evidence in my case. But I got to go through that process for every state I interact with. If I'm vacationing there, then no, as long as you stay a certain period. But a state you work in, a state you live in, a state you go to school in, you got to fight that battle all over again. Again, this will be with me the rest of my life.
Wow.
This will be with your son the rest of his life, regardless of what happens.
It's wild. Now, let's go ahead and run through your website real quick and just talk about what the petition stands for, what it would,
So
if someone
here's
signs this petition, what they're helping with and things of that nature.
So here's what we're saying. We get that some of your audience are going to be skeptical. What we're
Right.
asking for in that petition is an independent review. We're saying don't believe us, believe our evidence, right? So it's written from the standpoint of one of the moms in fact, it's the Air Force gentleman who she got the recording of. So you see Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines represented in this picture, Black, white, and Hispanic. But this petition represents more than the 7 men that we had who were willing to come forward and have their picture taken. It represents all. We mentioned further in the petition all of the men who've been falsely accused and wrongly convicted. And so we would like to get media attention if we can. We would like to get congressional and senatorial political attention so we can get the laws changed for an independent review and let them look and see what happened and then make a determination. That's what the petition's trying to do. So we ask you to sign it, share it, please. And this video as well. Please watch it. Please share it. Please post it on your social media so we can get the word out what's happening. So something like this never happens in this country again.
Yeah, and especially, if you have a son or daughter and you want them to join one day or something, I mean, let's give them a fighting chance, right? I mean, you don't want, like Holly said, you expect your son and daughter to go in and you understand that what they're signing up for, but what you're not expecting is getting that phone call and saying, "Mom, I'm in jail right now. I've been accused of X, Y, and Z." What? And now they're in a legal system that you, as a civilian, don't have any kind of touch with. The UCMJ is designed for military members. So as a civilian, I imagine trying to get involved in that world, they don't want you there, right? And they're going to do everything in their power to keep you out. So I mean, it's got to be super frustrating. And
But one of the things that people don't know is the military has no jurisdiction over civilians. So even if a civilian comes and takes the oath to tell the truth and lies, they can't charge that person with perjury.
Wow. Yeah, it does seem to me that, a lot of our, rights as Americans, once you join the military, you lose a lot of them, and then you kind of work into a different legal system as well, right? I mean, I don't feel like you have every legal right that you do as a civilian, and once you sign that dotted line, apparently you just give your life up to them, and then they get to play God, or essentially, with you.
Brian, there's losing your rights, and then there's being denied justice, which is an order of magnitude greater than losing. A lot of veterans will go, yeah, they held us to a higher standards. It's, tell me where in the military it's authorized to destroy evidence, where it's to deny it, to throw it out, to disregard it. And so
DNA evidence,
Right.
Things in that would normal cases that would end that right there. Like, all right, boom,
Right. And so yes,
Case
yes,
dismissed.
they hold you to a higher standard. But even beyond that, it's what they're doing at the evidence, and there's no ramifications for the people doing it. So, you know what? I lost the evidence. You lost it, right? It was destroyed, and we don't know how, but it would have exonerated me. Oh, you forgot to pass it over. Oh, really? And it would be comical if it wasn't real. If this was a movie script, you would laugh. I would laugh with you, but it's not. It's real life, and it's real people's lives who are being destroyed, and they're currently going through that destruction today. Their mental health, we talked about that as part of the podcast. I mean, we got people, they can't trust anybody anymore.
Right.
They can't trust anyone. And it's their lives are just, they're sitting in the balance. And this label that we've given, these negative labels because of their military service, they can't get past. And it's a lot of people want to turn the page and hide their face. They want to say, hey, let's move past, let's going forward, let's do this. Here's the example I use. Imagine someone who burned thousands of homes, burned them to the ground, killed people, destroyed lives, property, etc. And then they come to you and they said, hey, going forward, we're not going to burn any more homes. Now, we might destroy your car, but we're not going to burn any more homes. But we don't want to take care of any of the homes we already destroyed, right? Hey, we'll drop Agent Orange on you. We used to do that. We're not going to do it again, but we might have some burn pits. Oh, we're not going to do that again, but we don't want to take care of the people that we impacted. Do you feel that's fair? I mean, does your audience feel that that's fair? If they do, then do nothing, right? But if you go, wait a minute, that's not right, that's not fair. Imagine someone lying on you and everybody believing it, even if you've got evidence. And if you want that to be the standard, I hope that's what you get. I hope somebody lies on you and nobody believes you too. But if you think that's wrong, share the video, sign the petition, share it, because that's all we're saying. Believe the evidence.
And also, with just saying that, I want everybody to be understand we are not undermining the victims out there, right? Like
The true victims. Yes,
there are
the
true
true
victims out there that have experienced this. I want you to understand, as a victim, you should also feel for this as well. And because this to me undermines victims when someone's being falsely accused, because it really starts to muddy the water when you have this kind of stuff. So someone who is a victim out there, this shouldn't bother you, that there's people out there that are fighting to get the wrongfully accused exonerated from what they're experiencing, because it ruins their lives, and so I just want that to be clear message out there, that we respect the victims, the true victims out there. We also respect the wrongfully accused, and we want them to do justice and not go serve the rest of their life behind bars and miss out on everyday life with their family members, missing, occasions, missing milestones, missing, births, missing weddings. I mean, it's just a sad situation.
Brian,
and a lot of these guys that go in are young. They're
right?
very young. They're getting ready to go start their adult lives. And now you're just
Right.
cutting them off at the knees.
Brian, we work with 2 victims advocacy groups for victims, and we're about to add a third, because they've looked at our cases and says, hey, we agree with you.
Wow. That's
we don't want to say it out loud in public, but we know it's a problem in the military. We want to work with you privately, is because they've seen our cases. In fact, they've said, hey, in the military, we've seen people do it. I'll share one last story with a young lady. This was Air Force. She's a member of the LGBTQIA plus community. She's bisexual. She had a friend in the Air Force who identified as lesbian, who had sex with a male airman. So when the other members of her community teased her because you can't really be lesbian, she accused him of sexual assault, and he was convicted. So she came to me with that. She's got no dog in the fight. She's like, hey, I saw this, and it was because she felt bad when they teased her. So wait, you just ruined this man's life because somebody teased you? Because now you can't be part of their community anymore? And And she
It's a
shared that.
feeling of shame or
Right.
or guilt
Again,
because you got the society pressures, right?
Right. And so you go, wow, that's not a big deal. People aren't saying that's wrong.
Gosh, I want to say thank you though to Arvis and Holly for putting your guys' face out there and putting your voice out there and being advocates and wanting to seek justice. Holly, obviously this is very near and dear to you, as your son is sitting there and has been there for 12 years and still has got a long haul left in front of him if you guys can't hopefully seek the justice he deserves.
Every day of his 30s, if you can imagine, you think about what you were doing in your 30s. Every day of his 30s, he's been incarcerated.
Gosh.
And Arvis told a story about the candy bar earlier. That guy was 21 years old. The married mother of 4 gets nothing, and the guy, 21 years old, gets 20 years.
Yeah. His whole 20s have been spent in prison. His whole 20s is gone.
And his whole 30s is going to be in prison too.
Could be. We're hoping
we
can get him out. We hope he can enjoy his 30s at least out.
Man, you know what? And God bless you guys, because who knows how many lives you may end up helping out. You can't ever give back someone time, right? Your son's never going to get back the 12 years or whatever, however many years he has spent there. He'll never get that back. And no matter what they say, and if they're like, oh shit, you know what? We're wrong. Sorry about that.
Our bad.
At that point, what are they going to do for him? You can never give him back what he has lost. And his dignity. I mean, just, it's got to be very hard, right? Especially when you go in and you want to serve your country and you feel like you're doing an honorable thing, and then you get dishonored by that people that you're trying to be honorable for.
Exactly.
And Brian, I'm glad you said dishonor, because again, when you look at the admirals and generals and the leaders who know this is happening, how is this honorable behavior?
And how can
are
you
they
sleep
being
at night?
honorable?
How the frick can you sleep at night? You got leaders out there. You guys are supposed to be out there looking out for your men and women. It's not just about your promotion, your next promotion, man. These young men and women have a life ahead of them, and some of them, that's, they went from knowing what they knew in high school and living at home to boom, now the military is all they've known. And they think that, they're in here and that my leaders got my back. They got my back. The colonel's got my back. And then they go into the court and they just find out, no, he doesn't.
Brian, they have their backslide in a sling is what they got.
Yep. And yeah, I mean, it's a world that I think a lot of people don't want to talk about, but like we said, it's out there and it needs to be talked about. Because if we don't talk about it, it's not going to get fixed. And if we don't talk about it, the next wrongfully accused victim is going to be behind bars doing a long stint of time. This could be your son. This could be your daughter.
That's it.
This could be your dad, your mom.
Brian, what I tell people is what was done in public can't be undone in private, which is why we got to put this information out. It was done in public. You got to undo it in public.
Yep. And, the other part about it is it doesn't just stop there with the wrongfully being accused. That doesn't just stop there, and it doesn't ever erase once you have been accused. That part is always, that ding, that dent is always there.
That injury is always there.
Right. In Arvis, man, I bless your heart, man. And you still seem like you just have a great head on your shoulders. You could be out on the streets, not giving a shit, but this obviously means something to you. Well worth the fight, as well as you, Holly. And I can't appreciate you guys enough. Right. And I hope that all my brothers and sisters out there, if you guys got a podcast, hey, let's not be scared. Let's not be afraid to let people have a voice, right? Even if it goes against the popular voice or the we got to start getting some of these. They may not be, a large percentage of people happening to, but it's enough to where it's ruining someone's life. And we should care enough about that, especially if it's our brothers and sisters, someone that we are serving with next to. And we can't just sit there and forget about these men and women rotting in a way when they shouldn't be, and we all should be out there sitting there in the governments and picketing and throwing the signs up there for all these wrongfully accused men and women serving time. So once again, thank you guys so much. Is there any last things you guys would like to say before we head out?
I just want to show my son's picture.
Yes, absolutely. Let's get him out there.
This is my son.
I just want to thank everybody for tuning in and ask you to sign the petition, share it. Please watch the video. Thank you for watching it, and please share it with anybody you can. Thank you again, Brian.
Thank you, Brian, for allowing us to speak. Thank you.
Absolutely. And once again, guys, here is the website, www.change.org/unjust UCMJ. And I'll also put that in the description of the show as well. And if you find it in your heart and you guys believe in their cause, go sign that petition. It doesn't cost a thing, and it does help the cause. The more names that we can get on there, the more that we'll get visibility on it as well. That's what everybody wants to see, numbers, right? So thank you guys, and keep doing what you guys are doing, and thank you so much for fighting for the ones that are wrongfully accused and doing time that they shouldn't have to do. But we'll see you guys.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
All right, friends and family. Well, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for another amazing show. I thank you guys so much for tuning in. I know these aren't always, some of these shows are going to be a little bit harder than others. This is one of those ones that it's not going to be in the favor of everybody, but it's something that we got to talk about. These are things that are happening. Just like there's victims, there's wrongfully accused victims as well, and we can't ignore both sides. So I hope you guys are having an amazing day out there. Remember how we say, don't let the day kick your ass. Make sure you're out there kicking it. Until next time, we'll see you guys.
Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.